Welcome to episode 8 of the Nameless Real Estate Podcast. This is the week of March 21st, and I will be running the numbers on Wednesday the 24th. And this week's interview is going to be with Steve McKamey, the broker for ProStar Realty. He tells you about how he got started. He tells you about what the market is like for sellers and buyers, and also gives some advice to people who might be interested in getting into real estate. At the end of this, we'll, of course, run the weekly numbers. Thank you very much for watching. Steve, how are you doing today?
Wonderful. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for coming on my show, the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. And one of these days, I'm going to come up with something better to call it. So I've told the audience that you're coming on. You're Steve McKamey. You're my boss. And right after my wife, you have beating privileges on me. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
I've been a real estate broker way too long here in Phoenix, but we have been selling real estate. I have been selling real estate, residential and commercial, and I've been in ownership of real estate companies for over 35 years in Phoenix, and it's a really nice career for me. It's been something I've always wanted to do, something that I worked hard at. And fortunately, I've met and worked with and trained a lot of some of the best agents in our area right now that are still out there producing and doing their own deals. Some of them have now got their own brokerages and have evolved into that area. So it's been a nice time, and some ups and downs, of course, like with any business, but wouldn't trade it.
You said that you always wanted to get into this. Is this did you have like a mentor or a family member or somebody that you looked at and said, yeah, I want to be that?
No, just the opposite. When I bought my first home, I was in my early 20s. And I didn't know anybody in real estate, and I didn't know anything about it, but I knew I didn't want to be a renter for the rest of my life. So I started calling on signs that were in front of properties. And I got an agent, good old boy agent, who worked for a company who's no longer in business, not because of him, but because things have evolved, and it was a bad experience. He really didn't educate me very much at all on the way that the process worked. He didn't really give me all the information that I probably should have gotten about the property. He didn't stay in touch with me. I had to kind of chase him around to find out what was going on with things with my loan, and I had never done a loan before. And when we finally closed escrow, I never got the key. And I had to leave messages at his office and chase him down to finally, a week later, after the close of escrow, a week later, I was able to go pick him up at his real estate office. And after all of that chaos and all of that anxiety and everything that happened in that transaction, I thought, you know what? That can't be the way it's supposed to happen. And I started kind of researching a little bit, and I thought, I was in the restaurant business at the time. I said, I think do a much better job of helping people buy and sell homes than that guy did. And look at all the money he just made off commission. I thought, oh, that's a lot of money. It just kind of dawned on me that people don't always do exactly everything that they can for their customers and their clients. It's the same in our business as any other. To be good, you have to look out for your consumer. You have to be their person in charge. You have to be the person who leads and helps and gives them every piece of information they could possibly need, and keep them comfortable along the way, and then congratulate them at the end when there's a celebration. I didn't have any of that when I bought my first home, and I thought, I'm going to get into this and I'm going to do it different, and that's the way it's been ever done. And that's what I've tried to imprint on all of my agents and all the training that we've ever done and all of the coaching that I've given and the advice I've given to any of my agents over all these years is to take care of your customer. Number one. Without them, you have no business. So I've never forgotten that.
So Steve, what was it like getting started back then? I assume it was different than getting started now. Did you just go down and get training? Were they were licensing back then? Because the licensing kicked off relatively early.
Way back then, you had to take all of the real estate classes in a real estate school, and they held state testing once a month at a big auditorium downtown at the association's office. And you had to have an appointment, and it was monitored, and people, they shoved 100, 150 people into this room spaced apart, and you take your test, and you get the results a little bit later. And, there was no online classes. There was, you had to go either educate yourself by reading books and attending seminars in person that you had to pay for, or there was some minimal training available in some of the companies, like a 2-week boot camp. But basically, the education part of it was very, very helter-skelter and not organized like it is today. And it was all in person. And the business itself, we had some spurts of inflation. We had some times, really good times, and we had some really, really dark times as far as real estate sales and values. And in each time that we had the crest of the wave and then going down into a different cycle, it seemed to weed out a lot of agents who really weren't doing well, and the strong ones stayed. And it's been that way throughout my career. The people who have learned how to evolve with the business, and the people who learned to embrace technology and to reinvent themselves every once in a while when the market shifts, are the ones that are still around as long as I am. And the new people coming aboard are just automatically brought into that world with the new technology and the things that we have available now and all the tools. And it's wonderful that they can grab onto that in a hurry. But back in the day when I started, you had to pretty much do it on your own. And you had to depend a lot on your broker if they were there to steer you in the right direction. Now a lot of the brokerages, all their training is online. They have transaction managers. They have all kinds of different bells and whistles that you can access. But it's not really more of a broker to agent relationship as tight as it used to be way back then. So it's different. It's evolved. I think every business has evolved in some way because of technology, because of all of the things that we have now. But as far as real estate technology and real estate access to information, I'd say it was like back then driving an old Chevy stick shift compared to now you're driving a spaceship. And that's pretty much an analogy that I can go with because it's really, really changed.
So, how do you think it's different for the consumer?
The consumer has much more information at their disposal now without even talking to an agent than they've ever had before. The consumer is pretty savvy, knows what market values are in neighborhoods. They know what they want in the way of their new home. The sellers, same thing. They have technology available to them online. There's a world of information on the web or either side. And we have a much more educated public as far as real estate matters and what's right and what's wrong, what should be done and what shouldn't, and that kind of thing. So I think it's been healthy. I think it's good that the consumer is much more educated now than ever before. And so the real estate people are helping them to make good decisions based upon information that we both have now. Not just the agent and the broker, but the consumer as well. And we're partners now. You have to look at it that way because you want to make sure that these people have a good experience and that they get everything they should be getting as a consumer on either side of the transaction, buying or selling. And I think that's a good thing that's happened and changed for us along the way.
So we're both working with first-time home buyers, and if you're onboarding a new buyer, they just showed up. Give them your speech. Onboard the new buyer into this is the experience you're going to have with Steve McKamey and ProStar, looking and finding your new house.
Well, first of all, the first-time home buyer today, depending on the price point that they're in, which is usually the lower end because it's their home, an entry-level home for them. In the Phoenix market, and from what I see around the country, it's not much different anywhere else. Entry-level housing is scarce. There's not enough inventory still. It's been weak for a couple of years now. And that first-time home buyer is really in a very competitive market. They have to know that going in or they're going to have a lot of heartache. They have to know that they've got to be completely qualified and ready to go. If they don't have down payment money, there's some available. But as far as closing costs to be paid by a seller, that's something that isn't done as much now as it used to be in other time periods. So the sellers are looking for their net. And the highest net to them is the contract they're going to favor, of course. And when all the dollars out they can get. So the buyer needs to know that no matter how the agent and they put their deal together and their offer, they should always put their best foot forward. They should always, if they have cash in the bank, if they have monies available, or get funds from family or whatever it might be, that they use it wisely and they give that seller the very best offer that they can give them. There's going to be other offers to in that price point, in the lower end entry level housing right now. It's really, really tough. So they need to know that going in and tell them, let's not shop for properties that are above your qualification limit and hope that buyer is going to give you a better price, because that's just not happening right now. That's not the market that we're in. You need to live within your means, buy within your means, and know what that limit is, and shop for that home and that property in that area. And do your very, very best offer that you can on each and every one that you try to buy, to give yourself the best chance.
So as your new buyers and stuff come in, or even mature buyers who've been around the block a few times, what's you think the one thing that they need to know that's different today than a transaction they might have had before in the past, that you're just not, we know about it because we're in the middle of the things and they're coming into it. If you could say one thing to them, it's like, okay, this is what you need to know about today that's completely different than your previous transaction. Would it be the same thing as like, this is go big or go home scenario?
It's much the same. I have people in the $1 million home bracket that are slugging it out with competition just as much as I do with houses under 400. People are there. We have a strong buyer's market right now. A strong seller's market. And so the buyers are having to compete at every level, at every price point. You have to, present the best offer to get your offer accepted. You have to give the seller the best net, the best terms. With, in a lot of cases, we're seeing people waive inspections, which I would never recommend a buyer do. Don't waive your inspections. You need that. You need to know what you're buying, top to bottom. And people are waiving appraisals to get their contract accepted. Well, to a point, depending on the pricing and where you think, and every real estate agent and broker should always provide that buyer and that seller with competitive sales in that neighborhood that are right now 3 months or less in age as far as the close of escrow and the timeline. Because the market shifted and changed so much and gone up so rapidly. A comparable sale from 6 months ago is really not a comparable anymore. You need to be more current. You need to have all that information in front of you to make an educated offer or to accept an offer if you're a seller. You need all the information you can get, and the agent should be providing that. And you should put together and dissect it and really, really look at what your competition is if you're going to win. It's very important to be knowledgeable going in to any sale, and then along the way, get your inspection. Do the things that need to be done to make sure that you are not going to have any surprises later, and that you are buying the house that you want to live in, that you are going to make your home.
You mentioned on the seller side, when you're presenting offers to the seller, you as the agent need to do your homework and make sure that one of those, the really, really great looking offer on there might not actually work out if the house isn't going to appraise for it. I was talking to an escrow officer yesterday. She told me that she had 5 escrows, listing or contracts cancel all because of appraisal.
Yeah.
But it used to be like maybe 1 or 2 a month. She had 5 in 1 week. And we had a conversation about maybe that means the appraisers are getting a little bit more tight, then
I think there's some of that, and depending on the appraiser and they're pulled from a random pool. Some appraisers are more conservative than others, no doubt. Some are a little more liberal, but basically they got to work with the same information, the same comparables that we have available to us to show the buyers and sellers. Those are the same sales that the appraiser is going to use. They're going to make adjustments for different things like pools and 3-car garages versus 2-car garages, or lot size and things like that. But they have the same information. So we need to relay that to our client before a contract signed, and everybody knows what they're dealing with. And that appraisal a lot of times is coming in lower because in this market right now, the sellers are reaching for the sky. They figure, well, let's put it way up there, way high, and maybe someone will match our price. Maybe someone will jump on that because there's not another one for sale on the same street. So people are reaching for the very top end of what is reality. What's the real values right now? And so sometimes they've reached a little too far and a little too high, and the appraiser's not going there with it. We have people a lot of times that will waive a portion of the appraisal. For instance, you have a house for $500,000, and somebody says, "Look, I'm going to buy your house. I'll put 20% down, and I'll give you $500,000." But the realtors have both given comps to one another, and the buyer's seeing these comps, and the appraisal really should come in around 450 or 60, somewhere in there, because that's the highest sales in the neighborhood for a comparable home. So sometimes the buyer, if they really, really want to win that deal, will say, "Look, we'll waive We'll pay $30,000 above the appraisal if it comes in below the asking price that we're offering, or 20,000, or whatever it might be. So that if the appraisal does come in a little bit less, the buyer's going to make up the difference in cash. Because we see a lot of that right now. We see some transactions where they're waiving appraisals altogether. And with Fannie Mae, sometimes if they're putting 20% down on any given transaction, Fannie Mae will actually waive the appraisal as part of the qualifying and the underwriting. So they're important. Appraisals are very important, and you have to deal with them and work with them if there's financing involved. But there are ways to enhance your offer to minimize the guesswork or the risk from either side, as far as where you're going to wind up when it's all over.
What's today's experience going to be like for a seller?
In our market right now, the sellers are in a really good position. They're in a really good spot. They have a lot of options that a lot of sellers and a lot of real estate agents don't even know about yet. All this new wave of technology I was talking about, all these things that people have available now. You've seen all the commercials on TV for all the different cash buyers. I'll buy your home today, no commission, no closing costs, as is, blah, blah, blah. Well, they all have a platform and a position, and there's some big names out there that advertise, and you see their commercials all day long, billboards, and they're doing a lot of heavy marketing. What's surprising is most of those places, most of those businesses at this moment are not producing a profit. They're buying houses for cash, trying to establish their footprint in our market, and making a profit doesn't matter. They're still not going to pay above value for a house, but they're paying pretty good sums of money for them, and they're trying to get a presence. They're trying to get a movement or a following of people who are just automatically used to, well, let me call this cash buyer. This Open Doors, this Zillow, this OfferPad, all these different places you see every day. Let me call one of those because they're going to cash me out, but they're not going to give you full price. That's going to lose them even more money. They're going to give you probably a fair price with those conditions, and they charge a convenience fee off the top, which is about like a commission. But we work with the iBuyer. We work with them and actually are certified to present offers to sellers on their behalf. And we have a comparison chart that we put together that shows one to another, to another, to another, to another. Here's your offers on all these from all these different entities, and here's your net, your net, your net, your net, side by side, so people can see what those cash buyers would give them bottom line, because that's what we're all after, bottom line. We also have options for sellers where they can, if they're concerned about selling their house right now because they don't know where they're going to move, we can help them get the financing to buy their next home, move in it, close escrow and move in it before they actually have to list and sell their house that they live in now.
And they can do that without a buyer's contingency on the offer. So I think my audience by now has heard me talk about buyer contingencies and how they go into an offer and how they're not really being accepted by sellers at this point. And this is what can all happen to the seller without a sign going on out in the street, without a lockbox going on the door, without the unwashed hordes stomping through their living room and stuff and opening up all their cabinets and whatnot. We can do all of this and market that property to all these buyers for very little impact on the seller themselves.
Yeah. And the good thing that's even better about some of those programs, especially the buy first and sell later, is structured so there's no double payments, no double move, and all that stress is gone as far as what our traditional way of doing things is, where you try to sell and buy at the same time on the same day and close them both together, which is how it's always been done. We can remove that. and you don't have all that heavy stress that goes with it.
Yeah, I hate doing those because there's always another closing going on in the background that can impact yours, and that you have no control over whatsoever.
And sellers are in the driver's seat right now. Sellers, within reason, are getting top dollar. If they have an agent that's worth their salt, they're getting top dollar. They're getting multiple offers. They're getting lots of activity on their home, and they're able to pick and choose the right deal for them, as long as everything's looked at closely, and they've picked the best buyer with the best offer, with the best net, with the best situation and the best terms for them. That's what the agent's position is now in these transactions, to show the seller what their best options are for their situation. Everybody's different. What you need is not the same as what I need. Everybody has different needs. So we have to figure out what those are, and then get your transactions to match those needs. Same thing with the buyer. Buyer's got to, put their best foot forward and do the best they can with what they have to work with, and focus on, information that's being given to them, and how to navigate through, and what timelines to meet, and how to get this thing done right. So it's much more sophisticated, but it's still real estate. And it's been that way forever. It's just that we have a lot more information and a lot more bells and whistles and tools for us to use now.
How does the seller get started when they get the job over cross country or anything like that, or they decide it's time to downsize, move out to a retirement community, or how does the seller get started? What's their step number one?
Well, I think they should find a reputable agent company to ask questions about, interview. I think we offer a free checklist to sellers who contact us about things to do to start getting their house ready for market, and then know what that market is with the comparable market analysis that we provide. But the checklist gives them some inexpensive things they can do right away to make that house really show well, to get top dollar, to be competitive in the marketplace, and be the best they can be, to get the most net that they can get. That checklist is very helpful, and then from there we give the market analysis with all of the current comps, 3, maybe 4 months old at the most, and we show them the different ways that they can sell that house depending on their situation. What's the best option for them? That's where you start. Before you sign a listing, before you put a lockbox on, before you do anything, know what your options are, get the checklist, and know what's coming next. Nobody likes surprises. We want to give everybody all the information they could possibly have, so that there's no guesswork and no surprises along the way. And we can actually focus on the job at hand and do it step by step.
Right. And what's the one thing that, going back to sort of like the question we asked about the buyer, what's the one thing you think today's seller needs to know that they might not be aware of, that they've done a transaction before, they've sold several houses, but now it's time to sell a house in today's market? What's that one thing they really need to know that's different than any of the previous closings they might have had?
I'm going to go right back to know all of your options. Know what's available to you and how to get there. That's very important. The average sale in the past was stick a sign in the yard, put a lockbox on it, have an open house this Sunday, and advertise, put it on social media, do all those things. But before you do any of that, know all of your options. Know what might be your best possible scenario, and move towards that with your agent.
Let's talk about agents. This is I think it's relatively easy to become a real estate agent, right? It's 90 hours. pass 2 tests, go out there and go get them, kid. When you're dealing with new agents and you're seeing new people come up into the industry, what's the one thing that they never heard in real estate school, they never saw on television? Like Hollywood shows what real estate agents are, television shows what real estate agents are like. What's the one thing that a brand new licensed real estate agent is just going to like slam them when reality hits them?
First of all, it costs money to get licensed, get through the school, to get your test, to get a real estate license, and then to become a member of the multiple listing service, to get a lockbox key, to do just basic things to begin operation as a licensed realtor. Costs some money. Okay. The next thing is you're not going to get paid right away. It's going to be a few months probably before you close your first transaction. Be sure that you have enough money set aside to carry yourself and cover your bills and be self-sufficient and be able to spend a little money on yourself to get your name out there before you actually launch and become a full-time agent, because it's going to cost some money and it's going to take a little while to start having some success. And consistent sales take a while. I tell people to plan on, 4 to 6 months before you're actually going to be making a regular income as a full-time person working every day in this business. It's not just going to fall in your lap. You have to work hard. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have a good brokerage to work for. And you have to spend some money to make money. And that's the truth. And a lot of agents don't come in prepared for that, and within 2 or 3 months, they're drowning, and they're not covering their bills, and they haven't made a sale yet, and they're scrambling. That's a dangerous place to be, and it's no fun. Don't go there. Prepare for your career.
I'm suddenly having a flashback to a class I was in once. And I think it was one of the GRI classes, and we're talking marketing, we're talking this, and this girl puts her hand up and she's called on, and she really small, broken voice goes, "I've been doing this for 6 months. I haven't worked for 9 months. I've spent over $6,000. When do I get a paycheck?" And like every agent in the place just went, "Oh." And this one nice older lady agent came up and like just sat there and said, "It's okay, we'll talk after class." But it was just that absolute despair in her voice, because she's like, just when does it happen? I'm jumping through, I'm doing what I'm supposed to. When does it happen?
It's the brutal truth of our business, though.
Yeah,
and
80%.
Every case.
Yeah, 80% doesn't relicense after the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's a lot of turnover in our business, and that's why people think it's going to be all fun and games and a lot of luxury home tours and
I'm waiting for the luxury home tour with the champagne glasses I always see.
Yeah, and having coffee with your clients at Starbucks and just having a great time. It's hard work, and you have to spend money to make money. It's like in any other. You actually own your own business as a real estate agent. You own your own business. You're in charge. You're the one responsible for what happens to you, as far as your success or your failure. And a lot of people aren't prepared to own their own business in the beginning, and they jump in thinking it's all going to be wonderful, and they're disappointed right away, and they get frustrated really fast. So don't give yourself that anxiety of that place where you're going to expect that you're going to be an instant overnight success, and then it doesn't happen. As a new agent, you need to work hard, keep your head down, do what you're told as from your brokerage, get some education, and work hard for your clients. And those are the ones that make it.
So that's pretty much all the big questions I had for you and whatnot. So how do people get a hold of you?
You can call ProStar Realty at 602-265-4600, or you can go to our website, ProStarRealty.com. And we would love to help anyone, whether they're a buyer, a seller, a new agent. It doesn't matter. If it's real estate, we're there.
All right. Steve, thank you very much for taking the time out to doing this with me.
Good luck, everybody.
All right, go get some. And once again, I'd like to thank Steve for doing that interview with me. And now for the numbers. So for the week of March 21st, we run these numbers every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. So it's on the 24th. And we have set a new record for the last year that I've been checking. We are down. We've hit the lowest all-time number I've seen running these things to 3,938 active listings. That's down 117 from the week before. So we went under 4,000. We crept up a little bit for the last 2 weeks, started to get me excited, and then they pulled the rug out from under us, and now we're back under 4,000 again. Just so you remember, at one point, mid-April last year, we had a total of 14,000. So we're over 10,000 down from the year before. Our new listings came in at 2,374. That's down 107 from the week before. That's 2 weeks in a row that we've seen a drop in new listings. Our closings also went down. 2,225. That's down 186 from the week before. Our pendings are up a bit. 2,045. That's up 104. And our under contract looking for backups are also up a little bit to 1,364. That's a gain of 34 from the week before. Our contracts looking for a buyer's contingency. These are where the buyer is writing the contract but are maintaining the contingency that they do not have to purchase the property if they can't sell their own, came in at 87. That's down 11. So we really see that floating around in that area. It looks like people are not accepting offers if there's going to be a buyer's contingency on it. And back on the market is pretty well staying the same at 673 properties came back on the market because they fell out of escrow for either inspection, funding, whatever the issue might have been. So that is the changes that we're looking at. Looks like we might be continuing our drop, and we'll see how the rest of the week and everything pulls out. So, and for the farm report, lean hog prices are at 102.05. That's a gain of $1 from opening market this morning, and continues the rise that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks. I hope this podcast was entertaining for you. Questions, complaints, concerns, anything that you might have, leave them in the comments below. You can always give us a call at ProStar Realty at 602-265-4600, and my email will also be in the show notes. Thank you very much for watching. You guys have a great day.